This is Cody Leach. Anybody who finds this message, the future has been rewritten, and the threat has been eliminated. Many people lost their lives. A lot of blood has been shed to get us to this moment. And it was all fucking worth it, baby.
Nope, no you don't. Not falling for that again. Sorry, Cody. You've been terminated. Hello my Trigger happy friends, my name is Stevie Cade and welcome to Film Trigger. Today we're doing the spoiler talk for Terminator Dark Fate, and it's been a long journey reviewing all the Terminator movies leading up to the release of this film. But I haven't been doing it alone. My buddy Chris Durbin over at the channel Durbania has joined me in reviewing all these films, along with Cody Leach and Sean Chandler, and you can check out their reviews by clicking in the description below. And while you're hanging out down there, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell ding thing so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Alright guys, let's get started into spoiler talk for Terminator Dark Fate. The third Terminator in this series. But they really mean it this time. And the synopsis is not too far different from the synopsis of any other Terminator movie. There's a bad Terminator sent back to kill somebody, and a good Terminator or good soldier is sent back to protect them. In this case, the good guy is a kind of cyborg Terminator. It's kind of a cyborg human hybrid. So, yeah, but that's basically it. It's pretty much the same thing, but that doesn't make it a bad movie. On the contrary, there's actually a lot of things I really enjoyed about this film. So let's start off with that. Right at the beginning, in the opening of the movie, we get introduced into this sort of prologue where we revisit the video of Sarah Connor when she's in the institute, where she kind of has that little freak out on Dr. Silverman.
You think you're safe and alive? You're already dead. Everybody, you're dead already. This whole place, everything you see is gone. You're the one living in a fucking dream, Silverman, because I knew it happened. It happened.
And that kind of sets the tone for the movie, kind of a little reminder of what the last movie provided for us and where Sarah Connor was in her mind at that time. Just, you know, I guess it's kind of a refresher, and I thought that was a great way to start out. But then it kind of jumps forward a little bit into the year 1998, where we see Sarah and John Connor living in a world where Judgment Day never happened, but a different T-800 sent back by Skynet. Yes, I know Skynet's no longer around at this point in time, but they explain that later in the film, and we'll get into that later in my review. This T-800 actually carries out his mission to terminate the leader of the future resistance, John Connor, who apparently looks exactly the same age in 1998 as he did in 1995, somehow. But the de-aging technology that we see here on the T-800 is all a little bit wonky, and again, we dive into that later in the review. All in all, this was a great way to start the film and create that connective tissue between T2 and this movie, and sort of negating all the rest. I guess they're saying that the rest of the films are just alternate timelines now. That's the route we're going. But even though they kind of reuse that same template that we've seen over and over again in the Terminator films, they do it in such a different way that it doesn't really distract me from the movie. And the creative characters they bring into this movie really help with that. Like, for instance, Grace, played by Mackenzie Davis. And she was a creatively crafted character. As I said in my spoiler-free review, I had a bit of trouble understanding the character at first. She didn't seem like a very good protector of Dani Ramos. She would tire easy and needed constant medical attention to keep her sharp and ready for battle. And I found that to be a very odd thing, and it almost made me not like her at first. But when I really started thinking of it, you know, she's an enhanced human. Someone whose body was damaged at war and underwent augmentation. The human element was her struggle, which is quite opposite than it was in Terminator Salvation, where Marcus Wright's struggle was that he was part Terminator. This really gives us a glimpse into what being enhanced would actually do to a human body. Even though you're faster, bigger, stronger, you still have limits and need to take care of yourself. And I think that's a really cool aspect that actually makes this hybrid human relatable to everybody else. And then there's the Rev-9 Terminator, which I loved. By the way, if you check out Durbania's spoiler-free review, he has a really cool concept on why it was named Rev-9. So yeah, go check it out. I'll put the thing up here or in the description below, whichever one I do. I don't have much to add about the Rev-9 that differs from my spoiler-free review, but I will say this. They took the T-1000 concept and evolved it in a believable way. A Terminator skeleton cased in liquid metal skin, and they can act independently from each other. 2 Terminators for the price of 1. I think that's absolutely brilliant. It's a nice step forward. It's not overdoing it like they did in Terminator Rise of the Machines, or doing the T-1000 copy and paste that they did in Genesis. It's new, it's creative, it's a fresh take, and I really enjoyed it. It's a great level up. And then we have the woman herself, Sarah Connor. Linda Hamilton does such a great job reprising her role in a believable and humble manner. There's a scene where Grace is scorning Dani for being reckless, and it kind of reminded me of a scene that Sarah did that to John in Terminator 2.
John, it was stupid of you to go there. God damn it, you have to be smarter than that. You almost got yourself killed. What were you thinking? You cannot risk yourself even for me. Do you understand? You're too important.
Linda Hamilton did a great job jumping right back into this role, and I completely believed that this was the Sarah Connor that we knew 20 some odd years earlier.
But I changed the future. Saved 3 billion lives. Enough of a resume for you?
No.
And lastly, for the things that I like, are the political undertones in this film. This movie shows illegal Mexican immigrants being held in cages at its border. And this, I thought, kind of symbolized what the machines do to the humans in the future. But it is an unfortunate event that's happening at our borders right now. I'm not going to dive deep into my personal opinions or views on the subject, but I thought this was a very brave, important aspect they added to the film. Okay, so now there's some things that I'm on the fence about. And the first one is Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back as the T-800. You've seen him as the murderous Terminator in Terminator 1. You've seen him as the non-murderous Terminator, but will still fuck you up in Terminator 2. And you've also seen him as the Guardian, called Pops, in Terminator Genesis. But now, you get to see him as the Terminator we all know as Carl. Yeah, his name is Carl. I really like what they did with Carl. And I don't think a lot of people are going to like it, and I'm sure it's going to get made fun of a lot. I just made fun of it, and I did like it, because it's almost too ridiculous. But it lands in my on the fence segment here, because the story they gave behind him becoming the Carl that we know in this film is a little far-fetched for me. He's actually the Terminator that we see killing John Connor at the beginning of the movie. And then they kind of give this gobbledygook explanation that he has now become more human-like by studying and watching humans, and has seemed to grown a conscience. He even has a family and owns a business in draperies. It's far-fetched, man, but it's pretty forgivable considering this is what I felt was supposed to be the T-800 we saw from T2 if he wouldn't have died. This is what he would have evolved to. They just had to give us some explanation of why he's back and older and has aged the way and as much as he had. It's not too confusing, but it's very far-fetched. But again, forgivable because I really liked his character and I liked the way that he played this character. And he's funny. And not like forced smile funny, but human funny, you know? He ironically brings the heart to this movie. He sees the value in human emotions and tries to emulate them. Even to the point when he sacrifices himself at the end, his last words were, "For John." I'm not crying. You're crying. But the explanation of how we got this T-800 in the film was a bit off. Now, Dani Ramos, played by Natalia Reyes. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this character, but I'm on the fence about her because I feel her development was a bit rushed. She's part Sarah Connor from T1 and part John Connor from T2, all wrapped up in this movie and presented as the future savior of the human race. I liked her at the beginning of the film, and I liked her at the end of the film. But her getting from point A to point B just wasn't earned, I thought. She just kind of changed course midway through the film. From a frightened girl thrown into a messed up situation.
2 days ago, I
had this nice, simple life. And now it's a nightmare.
To Warrior Dani, leader of the future resistance. Again, great character, just wasn't developed well enough to get where she got, in my opinion. Now, before I dive into my negatives, I do have some petty points. I wanted to see Dr. Silverman and Rhys Kyle in this movie, and I did not. I would have loved me some Earl Bone in this one, even if it was a quick cameo. They could have shooed him in where Sarah Connor was taken into custody in U.S. Customs. Or, personally, I would have liked to see him kind of redeem his character a little bit by becoming someone that kind of helps Sarah Connor either stay off the grid or provides her some useful information that propels the story forward. And don't give me this, he's too old for this crap. He's only 3 years older than Arnold Schwarzenegger, who did an entire action scene. So, come on, Earl Bone, step up. Or writers, or whoever's fault it is that he's not in here. Need some fan service, please. And also, Kyle Reese. He's there. Not in the movie, but in that universe. He's there. He's alive. He's living somewhere in the world at that moment. And I could understand why they wouldn't want to bring the actual character back, you know, and see a physical Kyle Reese, but I would have liked to have seen some notion of Kyle Reese. Maybe we see a scene where Sarah Connor kind of looks him up and debates on going to actually track him down, and then ultimately decides against it for many obvious reasons. But Kyle Reese was such a big part of the Terminator mythology, I hated to see him go to the wayside and not even be mentioned in this movie. And lastly, one of the things I'm on the fence about is, how did we get the T-800 that killed John Connor in the beginning of the movie? And they explain that Skynet, at the time when Skynet was still around, in the previous movie's future, sent back many Terminators that are just dropping off at random points in time, or maybe not so random, but maybe they sent them all back in different points in time at one time or something. I don't know. Either way, they are still being consistently dropped off along this current timeline from a timeline that no longer exists. Okay. Just another reason for you to explain why Arnold Schwarzenegger's there. I get it. But I see you reaching. Now for what I don't like about this movie. The CGI and effects. Now this almost made it into my on the fence segment, but because most of the CGI was pretty darn good, once I started to think about how bad some of it was, it really started to piss me off. We'll start with the biggest one. The T-800 sent back to kill John Connor. That was a terrible, de-aged Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, Linda Hamilton looked pretty good, and they did a really good job, you know, putting Edward Furlong's face on that kid, you know, as John Connor, even though they showed him at the same age as he was in 1995, instead of showing what a teenager would do and grow quite a bit in 3 years. Then we see a young Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it was terrible. I thought they found a look-alike. I'm like, why wouldn't they just CGI Arnold Schwarzenegger in this scene? And then I realized they did. I'm not gonna lie, Genesis almost looked better. It was bad. Really, really bad. And there's no good reason for it. At all. And then some more inconsistencies. The Rev-9 Terminator looks great in a lot of shots. And then others, he looks rubbery, like 2000 Spider-Man rubbery when he's just jumping from place to place. It was such low quality and absolutely no reason to be in the movie when it's in there with such high quality CGI. So the inconsistency is why the graphics landed on my shit list here. And also, the score. They teased at the main score quite a bit and they never delivered on it. Instead, I got kind of like, you know, the off-brand Terminator score. And I think if they would have used that T2, maybe just, you know, slightly tweaked this way or another, I think if they would have used that, it just would have hit home in this movie, and especially, you know, connecting that bridge between these films. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie, and I can't wait to watch it in a T1, T2, and now official T3 movie night binge. It was highly entertaining and no real boring or slow parts to speak of. The story that Tim Miller brought to the table was captivating, believable, and ended with me wanting to see more of what could come from Sarah Connor, Dani Ramos adventures they hinted at for the future. And for that, I'm giving this movie a B.
That was wonderful!
Bravo!
I loved that!
Oh, it was great!
Well, it was pretty good.
I've really enjoyed reviewing all these Terminator movies with you guys, and it's been a great learning experience for me as a new YouTuber, and especially being able to work with Chris Durbin from Durbania, Cody Leach, and Sean... I almost said Sean Connor. And Sean Chandler. It's been a fun time, and I've learned a lot from these guys. Don't forget to check us out on Durbania's channel this Tuesday for our full ranking of all the Terminator movies, and maybe we'll dive into some spoiler talk for Dark Fate. I don't know. I haven't discussed that with them yet. To be announced. You can check out all these guys' reviews and their channels in the description below. You can also check out some more of my videos right here. And as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.
Sean.
Just clean up the timeline, man.